Welcome everyone to the... I forgot what I was going to say in the intro there. 5, 4, 3. Welcome everyone to Mail Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek Deep Space Nine, Season 2, Episode 18. It's called Profit and Loss. So spoilers for the episode as always. And this is a Quark-focused episode, as we were promised, where an old flame of his is on the station, but that old flame is a Cardassian and is on the run from other Cardassians, as we quickly find out. So it's all about Quark wanting to rekindle his romance, but will he maybe make a moral choice by the end? Who can say? We'll get to it. But Connor, what did you think of this episode?
I think it was fine. There are a lot of things I wanted to like about it more than I do. But it's not a bad episode.
I think it's a good episode. I think particularly the back third, it felt like a lot of things were coming together nicely, which I quite appreciated. Because there's those strings of stuff with Garak that feeds then into the stuff with Quark and his romance stuff. And there's a great scene with Quark and Odo where Quark tries to plead with Odo to help him and runs the gambit of various reasons why Odo might want to help him, and even brings up, hey, we're kind of friends. We're close in a lot of ways, even though we're often on the other side of each other. Yeah, and
I believe the word he was looking for was frenemies.
Yes. That's. I don't think that word was invented yet when they made this.
It probably was not. No.
But that's So I liked all that stuff. Maybe not the most elegant way of setting up all these plot beats, but I do think they all kind of came together fairly well by the end. So yeah, mostly positive.
I don't disagree with anything you said there. I think I fundamentally like pretty much everything that it does, but all of it I wanted a bit more from, a bit more bite, or a bit more on the comedy side, but just everything, it was all there, and there's nothing technically wrong with any of it, but all of it just felt a little bit muted compared to what I wanted from it.
I was expecting it to be a little bit funnier because it was a Quark-focused episode. So I guess that's maybe a slight disappointment in that front. So I mean, that's fair. So yeah, the whole thing is that they're on the station. Their ship's had some damage, which basically O'Brien quickly deduces that this isn't because they flew through a meteor shower. This is because other Cardassian weapons fired upon them, and they do also this old flame, Natima, and the two other Cardassians who are with her, who she keeps referring to as her students, which I don't think technically is accurate, but that's what she calls them that so often that I'm still going to just call them the students.
I think it is accurate, just not in... They're not students in the way you would think of. They are political students.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'm not going to remember their names, so students it is. So... Yeah, they get freaked out though, because we actually cut to Bashir talking to Garak, who we've not seen that much recently, I don't think. And it's kind of him still playing the, oh, are you secretly a spy for the Cardassians, or are you just a simple tailor? And it just reminds you of who he is, and then it kind of pays off in a nice little way when he comes downstairs and he sees the other Cardassians, Natima and her students, and they kind of feel a bit awkward. He looks at them kind of awkwardly, and they just give a not all nod, but clearly some sort of exchange has happened there. And Natima immediately is scared and wants to leave the station as soon as he's walked out of the room, which kind of sets us up for what's going on. So she actually just goes to Cisco after this and confesses who they are and what they're doing, and effectively seeking political asylum. She never necessarily asks for that per se, but that's kind of in the lines of what we're getting into.
It's implied, yeah.
Which is basically, they are liberal Cardassians who want to take the power away from the military and have a more free and democratic Cardassia.
Power to the people, I believe is the phrase.
And because the military and the Cardassia are so, not welcoming of these new ideas, they are basically trying to kill them, and they don't want this to go any further. So that is why they're on the run, which basically gives, a lot of the major characters on the show every reason to want to side with them and help them to some extent. And sure enough, Cisco says, hey, we'll give you a room, hide out here, you're free to do what you want here, blah, blah, blah. And it's all kind of set up nicely. And we kind of focus on the Quark and Natima romance stuff, as Quark's basically trying to get in with her again, even though she keeps saying she hates him. and then it kind of like comes back around out of nowhere, where it's all about focusing on that stuff, which we'll come back to. And all of a sudden, Odo shows up like 2/3 into the episode and says, "I'm sorry, but I have to arrest you." And this comes after what I think is a pretty good scene actually between Garrick and Sisko, where Garrick comes to Sisko and basically says, and this is right as like a Cardassian ship has shown up and is kind of threatening the station. He goes to Sisko and explains, "Oh, these are the war criminals and they need to be returned." And it's a very internal matter. There's no reason for the Federation or Bajor to get involved, really. You might as well just hand them over, and that's all it is. I think what I liked about this scene, though, is that it's very playful when he's talking to Bashir, right? This whole, like, am I a spy or aren't I? I think with Sisko, though, he's like, well, it's kind of weird for a simple tailor to come and give me this message, which maybe leads me to believe that, as I've suspected all along, you are no simple tailor. And Garrick, of course, plays it cool and smirky as he always does. But it was interesting to see a dynamic that was different here, where Sisko's very different from Bashir. Sisko was taking this very seriously, and flat out says to him, if you try and take them by force, if Cardassians try and take them by force, I will return with force. And makes it very clear where he stands on the matter.
Yeah, and that threat maybe is a little bit harsh, but strongly worded warning kind of directly leads to what the Cardassian plan is after that. Garrick obviously feeds it back and gives his suggestion. But like, hey, he's not going to back down. We need to approach this differently.
Yeah, and then their different approaches to offer Bajor some political prisoners in exchange for them. And even though Sisko doesn't like that, he says as much. He flat out says to Natima, hey, I don't agree with their choice, but this is a Bajoran station. I have to kind of go with what they decide. And they have voted to hand you over in exchange for their prisoners. So this is, what we're doing, unfortunately. So
yeah, he ends up by saying, I'm going to fight to like not have to do this and to find a different solution. I feel like I would have liked to have seen some of that after this.
Yeah, we actually don't see Sisko again in the episode.
Yeah, that's it. That's the last time you see him. He's like, no, I'm not going to stand for this. If I have to, I will, but I'll do my best. And I don't know, that's it.
Yeah, the episode just wanted to focus on other characters, I guess.
It did, but I feel like that was such a strong declaration from him that I feel like there kind of should have been some sort of follow-up.
It would have been nice to at least have one scene with him arguing with some high-ranking Bajorans, maybe. Or maybe even just have a debate with Kira, who might have felt differently on the matter.
Yeah, that's true. We get like nothing from her here.
Yeah, she's standing in the background in a couple of scenes, but there's not really much of a, interaction with her. Same with even Dax. I mean, we just focused on Dax last episode, so I'm not complaining.
We did.
But
I feel like Kira would have been like the most obvious one to bring in, though. Like, given that this is like related to Bajor and Cardassians, and we know she has such strong opinions on it. It feels like weird that she's so quiet, almost.
Yeah, I quite like the predicament this puts Sisko and the station in, having them here. But thinking about how the rest of the episode plays out, it maybe didn't need to happen. Like, if you just have, like, okay, so this other Cardassian comes on board and tells Garrick, hey, maybe you'll be allowed to come back to Cardassia and not be a shitty little tailor if you go and kill these students because we want rid of them before they leave the station. Like, that could have still happened, and we could have still had that all play out like it does without the political sort of standoff that was happening on a larger scale.
It feels like quite an extreme length to go to in terms of like the lore of everything going on with these two people, the diplomacy between them, to just contrive that they need to be locked in a cell to have their escape.
Yeah, which, again, it's kind of conflicting, though, because I actually do really like Odo making the choice to do it. Like, as Odo, obviously Quark goes to him and pleads and begs, and it's a fun sequence because he tries to call upon their friendship. That doesn't work, so he says it's for profit because it'll be better for the system and therefore better for business. And then he's like, oh, please do it, I'll beg. Like, just do it for me. And then he gets kind of passionate and says, okay, I love her. I care about her. I don't want anything to happen to her, blah. And you wouldn't understand that because you've got the feelings of a rock, which reminds me of another little moment I liked, is when Quark is trying to convince the students to talk her into staying, and he tests the drink he gives them. He sort of sticks his finger in it and like he's like, the security chief's a shapeshifter. You can never be too careful. And I love the idea that if there's like a bucket of liquid of any kind nearby, he has to like test it before he starts conducting shady business.
Just in case, yeah.
Yeah. So I was enjoying that. And then the end of that sequence, of course, this episode started with Odo thinking Quark illegally had a cloaking device, which of course he denies. But at the end of this scene, when Odo's agreeing, you know what? I don't believe they deserve the punishment they're going to get, so for the sake of justice and my moral code, I will let them out. But wait a second, if I do let them out, how do you expect them to get away without the Cardassian ship seeing them? And the way Quark just shoots him back a look, like, I've got a plan, I've got a sneaky solution to that. He's like, aha, you son of a bitch, I knew you had a cloaking device.
But it's fine, because justice.
Because justice, yes. All's fine in the name of justice.
Basically, Odo is Batman.
He kind of is, actually. He doesn't have his parents, right? He's kind of an orphan. Yeah. And he believes in justice.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's basically all you need.
And Quark is kind of like his penguin.
He is, yeah.
He's over at the Iceberg Lounge doing shady dealings, but there's a bit of a friendly rivalry element to it.
Yeah.
Easy peasy. So no, I mean I liked that sequence quite a bit. I liked I liked both the funny sides of it, but also Quark challenging Odo and saying, "Hey, you wouldn't know this feeling if it bit you in the ass. You don't understand why I care so much about this." Because as Odo quite rightly points out, it's very strange for Quark to be arguing for something that isn't for profit. And that's something that's kind of teased throughout the episode, is him wanting something. And even when he's trying to convince the students to, like, you know, go off and he's saying, "Hey, I've got a cloaking device for you," they say something about, "Oh, we only have a little bit of gold pressed latinum." And he's like, "Oh, how much have you?" And he's like, "Oh, wait, no, I'm not doing this for profit. Never forget that. I'm in this for love." So he has to stop himself.
He can't help it. It's just an instinct.
Yeah, which also the other line I liked early on is when he first talks to Natima again, and she's like, "Oh, I hate you, Quark, get away from me." He's like, "No, I need to keep trying. Rule 138 of acquisition." And she's like, "I never want to hear a rule of acquisition again. It's been 7 years since I've heard one. I don't want to hear one now."
Yeah. I could not relate any less. I always want to hear a rule of acquisition.
No, but I love that it paints this picture that when they were in a relationship for 1 month, like every hour, he's like relating something to a rule of acquisition. Like she's heard so many of them by this point.
She probably knows most of them. Except the ones he's made up since she's gone.
That's true. There's probably a good handful he's made up in the last 7 years.
Yeah.
Which also, another funny part of the Odo scene is when he's like, at one point he gets down and he's like, "Hey, from this point on, if you do this for me, Odo, I will never lie to you again. I will be honest about every single shady dealing, every kind of, you know, sly business move, deplorable action going on in the station committed by my brother." Like he tags that onto the end where he's not going to be truthful about himself, just his brother.
Which is still kind of very damning on him, because he like directs his brother to do everything anyway.
That's true. Well, that was the other line he said, actually. It's like, "Hey, I think I'm as close to you, Odo, as I am my brother." And then Odo's like, "I've seen how you treat him."
Yeah.
So, no. I mean, there's good stuff in there. I think maybe, like, the romance part of it, like, I like some of Odo's weird little tactics. Like, you know, when she slaps him at the start, and Odo comes over, almost like, "Oh, do you want to press charges on her? Are you okay? She just hit you." And Quark's like, "I've never felt better in all my life." Like, he's like, oh, he likes it. He likes being punished a little bit. The little perv. He's into it.
Yeah. I feel like there might have been, this episode might have been a little bit, it could have taken the funnier angle if she wasn't as into him, or at least at least if she went along with the idea that she wasn't into him that much to begin with. A bit longer. It could have been a bit more unrequired. Like we've seen with Quark in general, the fact that it's clear that there is this, even when she's playing it off as cold at the start, like it is pretty clear that there is this genuine history. It makes all the stuff less funny, because it becomes, no, this one's actually real.
Yeah, so it's a bit more serious. It also does take a bit of a shift when she does suddenly admit that she does have feelings for him. It does kind of flip very quickly. which is basically when she tries to steal the cloaking device from him, and she shoots the phaser at him, kind of by accident. Like, she pulls it on him intentionally, but she doesn't mean to fire it. And but he's kind of sly. It reminded me a lot of have you ever seen The Sandlot, when the kid pretends that he's drowned, so the hot lifeguard will give him mouth to mouth. It's very like that, where he's like, oh, I feel in pain, but maybe if you rub it a little. So she starts rubbing the chest, and he's like, that's better. I'm like, you sly little bugger. It was
on the lowest end.
Yeah. But then she kind of admits that she does have feelings for him. I think it might have been interesting for her not to admit that she cared about him until he actually like kind of pulled off what he pulls off at the end, like or after his part in that the final standoff. Maybe if she, as she's saying goodbye, admits, you know what, I actually do care about you, I do love you, and maybe we can be together one day, but I have to go. And I did but as for what actually gets said, when she does say I have to leave, I can't stay, I did love when she's like, oh, maybe one day when I've seen to the future that Cardassia that I want, and I want to enact it. And Quark's like, so all I have to do to get love is to wait for Cardassia to have a free and democratic society. And I'm like, that sounds a bit far-fetched.
Yeah, I've been waiting a while.
It was the way he delivers it as well. I mean, props to Shimerman for saying that with just that hint of like, not sarcasm, but just like
irony.
Yeah, hopeless like irony to it. That just okay.
Yeah, he knows.
Yeah, that's good. And I do like the final standoff, which is, Odo's let them out. Quark takes them to the ship, and Garrick's ready there with the phaser, and obviously he's had this, but he's been told to shoot them, and maybe he'll get to go back to Cardassia, which does hint that maybe he was important, and for some reason Cardassians have fallen out of favor with him. That's why he was left behind. We're kind of hinting at that backstory a little bit.
Yeah, it sounds like he was pretty involved with the council, High Council. I was in there, and he must have made some sort of mistake to have been banished like this, because it feels like he's still very much on their side. It doesn't feel like it was an ideological switch, like he didn't betray them. Well,
I don't know if it's a mistake. I do think it was, whatever he did was intentional. It's just that they don't like, because I feel like here they play with this idea that he does really want to go back and he's willing to kill for it. But then after what plays out, and he shoots the other Cardassian when he shows up, it does feel like, he was always, it's almost like he was waiting for him to show up because he's smart enough to know that he was going to. And this was always part, because when he walks off with Quark at the end, it's like, yeah, I did what I need to because I love Cardassia. So it does sound like an ideological thing to me that he believes in the future that these Cardassians are maybe going for, to some extent. Even though he did rat them out earlier in the episode, admittedly.
He does want to go back there. He still wants to be, he wants to do it from the inside, whatever he wants.
Yeah. But, he's not, ultimately he shoots the other Cardassian, and Quark says that he did this for love, and he's like, so did I did it for love of Cardassia. So it does sound like he wants a different Cardassia, and maybe the reason why he was shoved out to begin with is maybe he started saying that, or maybe he did an action that would go against their traditional
Rebel
values.
Sympathizer.
Yeah. So
maybe
it seems like it's teasing kind of like, I think this episode was like sort of teasing you towards he is just a spy, but then by the end I'm like, no, I don't actually think he is. I think he's been left behind, and he took this opportunity to sort of call something in because he wants to get back in their good graces, but I don't think he's necessarily an active spy in the sense that that's all he's here for. It feels like he was just abandoned by them.
I agree. He definitely wasn't like placed here with the intention of being a spy, but I think he's making the best of it. And like, well, I'm here. What can I find out? What can I use?
Yeah. Did you enjoy the scene where he talks to Quark about fashion for 5 minutes, but it's all a metaphor for what will happen to his love?
I think it might have got on a little bit long, if I'm being honest.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. I think it was, we got the point of the scene quite quickly. And I feel like, okay, it's a perfectly fine scene, but again, this was another one, like, where, in theory, I like everything it's doing. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, it's lacking a bit of bite between the two of them, like that back and forth. It didn't have the tension that it really needed, I don't think, where both of them know what they're talking about.
That's fair. I did like the little tidbit actually about Quark's backstory, where the reason why him and Natima got together in the first place is because he was illegally selling supplies to Bajorans when they were under Cardassian rule. So it sets up that one, she already had her ideals. She was already like anti-current Cardassian establishment at that time. And it also sets up that Quark, well, they say that he wasn't doing it for good reasons. I'm sure it was all about just profit. Hey, I'll profit off the people who are not supposed to be being sold
Sounds
to.
like Quark.
But at the same time, it kind of like, there's always that wiggle room of like, maybe there's a little bit of a sympathetic touch to it as well. Is like, okay, I'll make a profit,
levels,
but
right?
Yeah,
like, is he doing it just for profit because he knows they're desperate and he can charge what he wants?
Yeah.
But then there's also, well, he had to take that. It was a risk selling to them, and was the risk motivated purely by the profit, or was there an element of, well, it's probably the right thing to do as well?
Yeah, and I think that little grey area of maybe there's at least a little bit of a good reason is a big part of what makes Quark as a character work. Is there's just that little bit of like maybe there's a little good intention along with all the profiteering.
Yeah, and it's just small enough that you're never quite sure whether it's actually there or not.
Yes, but I think in this case it's maybe hinted at a little bit more just because it's the idea that she fell for him because of this. So maybe there's at least a little bit of truth to it. Otherwise, she fell for...
Unless you're being really cynical and he was doing it because he thought it would be good getting her good books.
Oh, true. Assuming he hadn't met her yet, or had met her yet, which I'm not sure if he did.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah, but, it's an interesting idea regardless. So, there's some interesting tidbits here about their backstory with Cardassia and Bajor, and this idea of like there's people within Cardassia who want to change it, even though that's very much not who's like obviously in control, right? This is like people who in Germany were anti-Nazi while the Nazis were in control. It was a very much hush hush or you'll get killed kind of thing. So yeah.
But like I said, eventually there's always the resistance fires. You assume they'll probably win out eventually, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's even something they'll get to specifically in the show, but it's definitely fleshed out, like, Cardassians as a race a bit more, because it's like, oh yeah, there's levels to this. It's not, like, just because most of what we see are the hard-ass, like, military, types, it doesn't mean that's all of what they are.
Yeah, it's not everyone.
Yeah. I mean, even Garrick was already a little bit of a different dimension compared to them, but this is even more so, because this is more sympathetic and progressive.
Yeah, I think with Garrett though, there was always the angle of, is he just playing that role as part of his spy or not? Or, like, clearly I think even before everything happened, I think he has intelligence training.
Yes,
I think that's pretty clear. So he's probably not an active spy, is what kind of where we're coming down right now, but he definitely was in the past, and that in itself like makes him a little bit different to most of them.
Yeah. And thinking back, actually, his opening conversation with Bashir is him telling a story about someone who got, persecuted because they chose the loyalty of Cardassia over the individual, or it was the other way around. But he was like sort of saying he was in favor of picking, loyalty to Cardassia is more important than loyalty to her brother, is what he was kind of getting across to Bashir. And Bashir didn't agree with that, of course. He was saying that's not how he would.
And I feel like he probably believes that, but when he says loyalty to Cardassia, he doesn't necessarily mean the military system that is in place right now.
No, his idea of what Cardassia should be is what he thinks. Yeah, which ties into the ending and him helping them escape. So I mean, I think there's a lot of good stuff in this episode. Maybe it doesn't all quite click together as much as I would have liked it to, but like it's definitely a lot of good like ongoing lore for the show.
I agree with that. Yeah, and like I said, when I said at the start, it's a fine episode. It's maybe a little bit harsh, but I think I'm a little bit disappointed by it because I can see like with a few tweaks here and there, this could be like a really strong episode. Like have that biting commentary and like really push that stuff forward while also, maybe being a little bit funny like we usually expect with the Quark stuff. I feel like it's just not quite at the levels it could have been.
Well, that is this episode of Deep Space Nine. Next time on Deep Space Nine, which obviously we'll be doing TNG first, but when we come back to Deep Space Nine, we'll be doing an episode called Blood Oath. Here's the description on IMDb. 3 legendary Klingons come to DS9 to see if Jadzia will participate in a blood oath that they made with Dax's previous host, Curzon. Oh, so it's another Dax episode, but it's her having to deal with the fact that Curzon Dax made a pact with
Klingons. That sounds great.
Yeah, so curious to see how that goes, and if Dax gonna get out of it, or maybe like is it dangerous? I assume it's dangerous.
Does
Klingons.
she want to get out of it?
Yeah, maybe she's going to be like, I like this was something I have to honor. This is
Yeah, it might be that she wants to go along with it, and you have like Cisco being like, "Are we sure about this? This might have ramifications."
So, no, and sounds interesting. So we'll see that next time. But let us know what you thought of this episode in the comments. All that stuff help us out. Like, subscribe, support us over on Patreon or YouTube membership. All that does help out a bunch. Thanks to everyone who already does. But that is the show. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek. And when Quark is in the bathroom talking about shady business dealings, does he have to like stick his finger in all the toilet seats and like give that a taste to make sure that Odo's not
Can never be too sure.
sneaking about?